Have a second question?
Dr. Smith, you had mentioned a curriculum that includes 90 minutes a day of language, reading, and vocabulary, and 60 minutes a day of math. Is this an ideal that the schools are aiming for, or is that in practice right now? And at what grade level does that begin?
It's in practice right now. And what we discovered, particularly at the middle school, and I'm a former middle school principal, is that we were integrating the reading and the language into the curriculum. That means they're not teaching it. So what we did was we instituted a reading period in the middle schools and recommended it and also directed it depending on the status of the school. When what we know from research is if you've failed the federal benchmark because your students can't read, you must every day reinstitute corrective reading, middle school to high school. What we have in this state are high school students who can't read. And so that is our major problem, the literacy and numeracy problem. So we found that students will learn what teachers teach and what they expect them to learn. And so that has been reinstituted into the school day. We also integrate that into art, music, physical education. So with all the demands on our schedule for the day by law, all of that integration, true integration, is necessary, is what we've found. Dr. Moats?
I would say that's very true, that you know, we do hear occasionally people concerned about science and social studies not being at the core, but we also know that you can't engage students in real learning in those areas if they don't have the literacy and the numeracy skills. So it's a combination of really drilling down in the important areas, those areas of literacy and numeracy, but also helping teachers expand that teaching expertise into those other content areas.
And I'm optimistic right now because Governor Bredesen has put a lot of focus on restructuring the funding formula around at-risk growth funds, ELL students. Those are our subgroups that are really having difficulties. And so we have a lot of hope right now around improvement in these particularly lowest performing schools.
Thank you.
This is for anyone who really wishes to answer it. And you all have done a great job of talking about academic performance, addressing improving academic performance, and taking data and so forth and making database decisions. What about addressing other types of outcomes as far as social, emotional? For some kids are not really there yet emotionally, you might say, to succeed instructionally as far as academics goes. What suggestions do you have about addressing the rest of the person, you might say, in school, particularly high school?
I'll take that one. Okay. Well, we're planning the advisor-advisee program, which we think is the heart of it. The relationship piece is the heart and core of teaching. If you don't want to have a relationship with students, you know, then you're probably not going to be able to teach them the content. No matter how many books you tell them to read, they'll read them because they think you care about them and that it's important and that they understand that you're in there for them. So we've got some social emotional training that we're working on for the advisor-advisee program. But another part of the MESS teams, I mean, even if you're not an advisor in an advisee program, all of these teachers are going to be working in teams. That's part of what they need to learn, is that relationship piece. And I also think the 21st century skills that are so important that we're hearing so much about in global competition has got to be a part of this. And that brings in a lot of the relevance and the life skills that come in with the relationship piece and the social emotional piece. So that's all part of what we're planning for our smaller learning communities. And I agree with you, you probably won't get the end results with the other if you don't implement some of this too.
Anyone else want to address that? If not, we'll go to our next question.
This is actually for the small learning communities, and really anyone can answer this. I think what I continue to hear over and over is the success of this program is really based on a global approach to education, with a lot of it, and at the heart of it, application-based experiences. So with the current structure that we have in our high schools with a career and technical, college prep, or dual enrollment, that seems to, in the CTE, they're covering that more thoroughly, perhaps, because these students have those application-based experiences. I love the concept of this because I believe that, again, I'm probably primarily involved in the sciences, but our ability to engage students into the sciences, math, STEM education, and hold them there, keep them there, is really based on application-based experiences. So would any of you care to comment on the potential merge toward a single-track curriculum that encourages our students to seek those application-based experiences and have teachers bringing those application-based experiences into the classroom as part of the standard curriculum?
I can answer part of that. I really think, if we're honest, there is just one pathway. And that is all students that graduate from Tennessee schools have to have 3 years of math, 4 years of English, 3 years of social studies. Did I leave, what's the other? And 3 years of science. Those we only offer 2 types in most of our public schools. We offer either, except for we do have for exceptional learners and ELL students, the same curriculum but with some different different supports. But we basically have college prep English, or we have honors English. That's it. We don't have a CTE English or a CTE math. So when our young people go into the freshman academy, they all have English together, regardless to what 4 years down the line their plan is, whether or not they plan to go to college or whether or not they plan to go into a career academy, they still are getting the same curriculum for math, science, English, and social studies. And I think that is most important if you look to reduce gaps in achievement, because you don't want to have a different expectation for our kids, whether they choose CTE or if they choose to go to a university pathway. So I think that is one of the things. But with regards to incorporating problem-based learning activities, we're doing that in our freshman academy through a program called, the curriculum actually we're using is a Forward Pass curriculum, which has about 16 different modules, which are problems that young people will have an opportunity to solve. And they all have English, math, and science components of that. So I think that is one of the key ways that we're being able to incorporate that. But I think it's critical for us to realize that we don't track kids. There's not a vocational track that we set kids up. We want all of our kids to leave our schools being experts, thinkers, and complex communicators, because wherever they decide to work, they're going to need those skills.
On a statewide basis, there's a huge curriculum and standards-based revision going on. We're completely reorganizing our standards. I know you've heard in the press Tennessee standards, we say we're 87% proficient and we're 32% as compared to NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. What we have done, it's not that our standards are low, it's our definition of proficiency is at a minimum or baseline level. And so what we're doing now is we're reorganizing through Dr. Bunch's shop in teaching and learning a look at the standards. And you're going to see a different a look at the standards, and those will be aligned to our assessment. This occurs every 5 years. We bid a test, and the standards assessment is aligned. So there's a huge process going on right now. But we don't like to hear that either. So